checking in with updates with GameTree and the things we're learning along the way. One big thing is interns checking in. Today, Sam, intern, and also Eduardo is here, a new guy helping with data analysis and later machine learning. We're all working together. It was really nice. And their main task is right now working on data analysis with Amplitude, getting marketing questions asked, getting data for press releases that we'll create content out of and share with the press in a couple weeks. And then getting into funnel analysis, which is something we've put off that's really important to do, understanding what's the difference between users who are super sticky and ones who churn. So that's like one of the most important things of insights you could have for a startup to help with retention is know how should you guide the new user process. And so it's really nice to have some help to work on this kind of stuff. And also by having a couple interns working on it together, they sort of learn faster, they can check with each other on things, and it's just a little more motivating. Then we also have another new intern, Camille, who is helping Cycna with marketing, and that's also nice because Cycna is more of kind of like a scale thinker, and so it's nice to have somebody that he can help delegate things to, and also somebody to fill in a gap of lack of marketing knowledge because he's pretty new to it. It's also important for us to get information to dive deeper into the analytics because with Amplitude we have to program it ourselves. It's more work, but we're getting more accurate analytics, whereas Facebook analytics, you sort of plug and play, it automatically does stuff. But we found that we're actually automatically counting anybody who opens the app even if they don't ever sign up, which gives us misleading numbers about how many people are actually signing up. We can't get a lot of nuanced questions answered, and also shows worse retention than we actually have after people sign up. So getting into Amplitude is really nice to be able to do this stuff. So if you're a startup, I highly recommend plugging those things in, but I wouldn't do it right away because first you need a product and start getting data before you even start tracking the data. One thing at a time, MVPs, get stuff out. And then something else I think that's relevant to chat about is just investor relationships and how much location matters and how much building relationships in advance matters. I've been trying hard to raise remotely from a kind of third world country, and it's taking a lot of effort, and I think I was trying to do it too soon because a lot of investors, like professional investors, invest a minimum amount that's pretty big to justify their time and attention and their salaries. And so while it was a waste of my time fundraising so much, at least a lot of that's starting to pay back now, where we have some interested investors that I've built relationships with for when we do a full round. And they're also speaking well to us, to investors in the meantime, if they want to feel more comfortable knowing that there'll be later investors, which is looking like there will be. But location matters quite a lot. The investors right now we're in late due diligence stage are based out of Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan. And I kind of gave up on looking in that region because investors are more short-term focused, but I actually got to meet the managing partner in person, and most investors I'm not meeting in person, so I think that might have helped push towards building this much interest. And also we know a lot of the same people, like other startups or companies in the gaming industry in this region. They know the founders, or if not the major investors that back it, and I know a lot of the founders, so having those common networks and stuff builds a lot more credibility. And I've been trying to get meetings with a couple people in San Francisco that are really high-profile investors, and I've gone back and forth with warm introductions, mind you, and like a lot of common ground, where it went back and forth with meetings and then like nothing happened because they're very busy people. But the second I just told them I'm going to be in San Francisco, can you meet within these few days that I'm going to be there? Already I have in-person meetings booked with these people through their secretaries, but the fact is that through a longer amount of time, nothing happened, and then meeting in person is not only stronger, but actually happened more likely. So that's another piece of feedback is doing things in person matters a lot when it comes to investments or business-to-business kind of stuff. And while moving to Ukraine was great for getting us this far to have this much traction, it was also the backswing of that is we're very behind in terms of business-to-business relationships and investment per how much traction we have. But it's nice that we have this problem rather than the lack of even traction problem, because one supersedes the other to even get to that point. Back to the analytics stuff, we're actually growing we've had about 80% more daily active users now than 3 months ago. So that's been going nicely, and we actually haven't really been doing marketing in the meantime, just based on a combination of maybe time and scale, as well as just product adjustments like gamification and like little things that we're doing. For example, right now we're adding a loading screen, so it's a slideshow when the app's opening, so people know it's not just frozen or it's more entertaining to look at. So opening the app becomes a slightly more positive experience rather than like, oh, I have to wait for it to load now. And something else that has been issues since the last one of these updates I did is community guidelines. As the community is growing now, things are bubbling up or becoming more of an issue, and it's not a spot where I thought I'd have much attention, but had to brainstorm sort of like what are guidelines for the community, especially for the moderators, and Sam helped with this, being able to bounce ideas back and forth. But what it came down to is a debate that's really big in society right now, which is it better to have safe spaces and comfort and political correctness, or to have freedom of speech and people being able to have open and rational dialogues? And the way things are moving right now is towards safe spaces, which makes people weak, and it makes it so people can't have rational dialogues. And also, in the evolution of society and thought and values, you usually want to embody the thing below you as you go up the ladder. And what's happened now is we kind of took a sideways turn, like jumped off the ladder where it discludes prior stages of societal evolution. And it's actually kind of preventing us from moving forward as a society if we lose the ability to have rational debate. So even though we're building this like non-toxic community, that's one of our biggest points that's both fits with the need to find friends and our beliefs about psychology and people getting along and teaching that stuff. I think ultimately, and even though a lot of my personal values are more on the political correctness side, I realize that it's actually better to have open debate, or else in the long term things just get worse and worse. So that's something that we've had to have as an issue, and just sort of my thoughts on that. Another thing I want to talk about is tendency to overthink. This is something that intuitive type people, according to the personality psychology stuff, are heavily guilty of on average, where we want to spend more time doing the perfect move or understanding everything before we start acting. But something I notice just more and more and more is the people who are the most successful are ones who just obsessively do things or take information and start applying it immediately. And for example, I just met an entrepreneur a couple of days ago who's built a couple online businesses, and he said that he like almost never reads, and sometimes he just stays up late into the night doing stuff. And while he doesn't have like the most intellectual approach or novel stuff that he's doing, just that sort of action orientation just puts him like a league ahead of people who just don't start doing stuff or might do like 20% as much stuff in the amount of time. And by doing stuff, we see what works, we iterate on that, or we just get better through practice compared to just reading a lot of articles and stuff. So that's something I'm always having to check in myself. And right now, seeing it visually in Psychna, who we just brought on, he's newer to marketing, and I think he's a very high potential person. But something that I'm having to see now is how that works in myself, and it's almost a mirror, but also how he's overthinking stuff a lot, and we have a lot of low-hanging fruit, but he's trying to like plan a master strategy. And it's easy for ourselves to kind of get caught in that trap, but seeing it from the external view makes it a lot more objective and clear. We can be a little bit more rational about it, where I can see how obvious it is that we need to just start doing the most obvious marketing stuff because it's like needed. We don't need to know our ideal target customers or the ideal messages to send for everything, what the ideal channels are. That we should be doing newsletters, we should be doing a social media post every once in a while. There are certain obvious sort of blog posts that we should be writing about, or like features of GameTree that we should be presenting more. So by focusing on these kinds of things, we're actually getting stuff done, and it will build in him more understanding of the industry, of the GameTree community, the app, what works, what doesn't, improving skills, and then sort of like a game tutorial, we can handle higher levels of thinking once other stuff becomes more understood and more mechanical. Like once you understand the keys, then you can start thinking about the strategy, but until you get the controls right, you can't even like play a game. And the same sort of applies to learning skills and being able to think on higher levels. And as an intuitive person, they're automatically going to, or we're automatically going to want to kind of think ahead or see the big picture for everything, and especially introverted intuitive, like a pattern organizer, we're going to want to have like kind of a master plan that we're aiming towards. So that's a big bias that we have in that Psych and I share. So in a way, I'm working on how to get to adjust his behavior, and it's also coming back to me in a lot of ways where I see that I'm doing the same stuff in a lot of other spheres. Led a psychology workshop, not 100% related to GameTree, but I've been studying the system that brings it from the 16 to 512 personalities, and it was a bit more objective. And by being able to teach it, it's like just fun, and I like sharing, and also maybe that leads to like partnerships or things like unexpected down the road. But also it just helps with like public speaking. I should be doing a bit more videos or brand building alongside of it, but I'm really bad about taking track of that stuff or wanting to stop the moment to record things. But it seemed like it went pretty well, and did a format where people would watch celebrities and then ask like, did you see this or this or this or this traits, in live typing in front of the class that people seemed to like. And I'm leading another one of these workshops about using personality psychology for optimizing teamwork later this month. Lastly is I spend a lot of time talking to investors, especially too soon, or working on business partnerships. And that's like most of it's sort of fruitless. But something that did come out of it is there's some people that's a strong team that are getting a grant for $2 million from the American government to Ukraine so that they can build a white label networking app using GameTree technology. So we get some ownership in their company and some money. And so that's like underway, which is kind of nice, but it's still really a shot in the air. And also a Hero.live partnership is going underway, which is a game streaming, like co-watching platform. So you can watch streams with friends and hear each other, and you hear other people watching the platform really quietly, so you get that feeling like you're in a stadium. And that's something that real sports really promotes, is that feeling of camaraderie and sort of social element to it that a lot of esports misses when people are just watching by themselves. So I'm really happy about that, and it's an easy partnership where we basically have to do very little in the way of expending resources and changing our products. But for us, like, we just kind of like want them to be having people hosting sessions in GameTree. So they get GameTree users discovering their platform, and also more attention among their users, and they can coordinate the games or find people to watch the games with. And for them, they're going to link people to, because they don't have those functionalities themselves, GameTree's having buttons for discover people to watch with or coordinate games, and they'll just link to GameTree. And it's literally just a couple links and an informational page. It's really easy to do. So that'll be interesting, good synergy to share traffic. And lastly, and the biggest news is GameTree might be getting pre-installed on millions of next-generation smartphones through a company called Acumen, Akyumen. I like the founder a lot, very purpose-driven, just like the way he does business. And they also want GameTree to be providing a lot of other services, like helping promote indie game development contests and game events, and distributing like contests or winners or rating for stuff, helping people find friends at events. And they even want us to move into like movies and music and maybe some other stuff, which is part of our roadmap, and also recommending games not just generally, but also particularly, oh, by the way, within our network you have this if it's on an Acumen device, because they have a lot of partnerships and acquisitions that they've done in the gaming industry. So if this actually goes through, GameTree is kind of on the next level, because if millions of people have it pre-installed on their phones, that's going to multiply our user base very quickly, and it can start generating a lot of revenue where we're profitable from these services if these go through. So fingers are crossed on that. We're working on a memorandum of understanding right now, but just wanted to share that update. So a lot of the time I've spent on these investments and partnerships, like most of it just kind of fizzles, but it's nice that a lot of this stuff is starting to finally manifest. And what I'm finding the reasoning is just like finding partnerships that just make like so much sense that you can't ignore them. Like, it's better to have a laser at the perfect target rather than to like aim for 20 and like hope one sticks. I'm finding that to be more true than I expected, both in terms of like investments and business-to-business partnerships, and also that I shouldn't have been fundraising or trying to build partnerships so early, because usually the bigger you are, the more you have to offer, the more people want to do partnerships with you, whether it's cross-promoting communities or whatnot. I even found that with Hero.live, I like the team and I trust in the team, but they're a bit earlier than us and don't have that much audience, so I don't even know if it'll actually lead back to us a lot or not. But I do know that they're building a lot of business-to-business relationships with other esports organizations, and trust it'll come back, but a lot of that's just part of the game. But the more of these we build, some pan out, some don't, but we'll see how that goes. That's it for now. See you next time.